30, I wanted to be successful. Today, I want to be useful. It's not the number of people I handle, it's the number of people I'm able to impact. The gold medalist did well as an individual contributor, but we never promoted him.
Some professionals really tie their self-worth with the job titles.
That a family is actually not looking at your titles. I was vice president IBM and I felt very low. At dinner tables, I used to say, "What's my worth?"
So next, I would like to take this liberty to ask slightly uncomfortable questions.
Well, Divya, so far you asked comfortable questions, is it?
Okay.
Oh my God, I have to get prepared for it.
What one advice would you give to the husbands?
This is Ashok Pamidi. 4 decades across technology, leadership, education, and social impact. But the real story isn't how far he went. It's how success changed for him, from ambition to impact to purpose.
Welcome to Leaders Unscripted, the stories they don't tell on stage. Brought to you by Recpedia. Every stage has a highlight reel, a polished story, the version that got rehearsed, refined, and approved before the lights came on. Leaders Unscripted is everything else. The moments that didn't make to the keynote, the decisions nobody clapped for, the pivots, the health scares, the assignments everyone else turned down, and the dreams that arrived looking nothing like the plan. Today's guest has spent nearly 40 years at the intersection of technology, people, and impact. From the leadership roles at IBM and HP, to leading NASSCOM Foundation as its CEO, to reskilling over 10,000 women in emerging technologies, to championing inclusion long before the world gave it a name. He's a startup evangelist, a leadership coach, a trustee, an advisor, a professor, and by his own description, someone who simply gives a damn. 40 years in, he still does. I'm your host, Divya Madan, and this is his unscripted story. Welcome, Ashok sir, to Leaders Unscripted. I'm honored to have you with us today.
Thank you, Divya. I look forward to having a good chat with you.
Looking forward to it as well, sir. Sir, you had a marvelous journey spanning across 40 years, and that too in a series of pivots. Pivoting from IT to ecosystems, startups, social impact, you sat on DEI tables, you've been into NGO boardrooms, corporate boardrooms, you've taken decisions on technology, you've led the IBM and HP teams, you've been the CEO of NASSCOM, you've seen it all, you've done that. This does not look like to me strategy. It looks like a story of subtle stubbornness, relentless passion, deep-seated belief, resilience and courage. But as I have you today sitting in front of me, I would like to hear your story in your own words.
Divya, from outside, no, it looks like a number of pivots,
Yeah.
right? Yes, I've spent about 4 decades in IT,
Yeah.
in leadership positions, diversity, equity, inclusion, ecosystem, as well as in the social sector. And of course, nowadays I'm also into the educational sector as well. But deep-rooted philosophy, as far as I am concerned, which was never changed, is looking at what is it that I am trying to do. So when I started off my career in IT industry, for example, the whole concept is the customer, right?
Absolutely.
And then I looked at it from the point of view of what is it that we are doing for the customer.
Yeah.
Then the same thing happened to in leadership, right? We looked at a number of people, large number of people in HP, for example.
Yeah.
What is it that I am doing with people? Can I lift them up, right? And then when I looked at the ecosystem, that is from the NASSCOM perspective, we had large number of IT, ITS, and BPM players. Some of them very large, some of them mid-size, and some of them small and medium businesses, which I started. But the whole objective and endeavor of mine was looking at the purpose. Am I solving out a particular problem? What's the problem we are trying to do? And the last assignment which I did as the CEO of NASCOM Foundation was looking at the clear aspect of a purpose, right? So I would say that while it looked like a number of pivots, but from my perspective, I think the overall hidden agenda was very clear. Use your word, subtle stubbornness. I would say yes.
Yeah.
I was stubborn. I was relentlessly trying to ensure the purpose, the endeavor of saying that, can I lift my people up? Can I mentor them? Okay. It's just not me going up the ladder. It's how many people can I pull up the ladder, right? If I look at the point of view of influencing, right? Can I influence the overall ecosystem? So I would say that 4 decades of mine, the first decade I spent on competence, right? Building my own competency. The second decade, I would say, was more on leadership, okay? And I would say the last decade was actually the purpose. And the third was actually influence. So that is the whole concept behind it. And I use that particular approach of mine by being stubborn. Yes, certainly stubborn, but achieve the main objective of what I wanted to achieve in life.
Amazing, sir. Deep-seated belief, courage, resilience, grit, and as we rightly said, subtle stubbornness in you made you fulfill your purpose across 4 decades. While you did something for yourself, which was purposeful, meaningful, and also uplifted people who were together with you. Amazing. I have goosebumps right now. Okay, so let's travel back in time, sir. So when you were 30-year-old Ashok Pamidi, what did you think success would look like for you? And how is it different today?
Divya, at 30, I wanted to be successful. Today, I want to be useful.
Wow.
At 30, I wanted to climb up the corporate ladder. Today, I want others to climb up the corporate ladder. And lastly, I would say at 30, I was ambitious, and nothing wrong in being ambitious. I was looking at job titles and the number of people I was, handling. But now, it's not the number of people I handle, it's the number of people I'm able to impact.
Yeah.
And it's not a title. It's a question of the purpose which, I am for. Can I impact those set of people whom I am addressing? And that is the most important aspect. And as I look back in my own career, I would say that it gives you a complete understanding of where we started and where we ended. But then throughout the journey, there has been a lot of learning. Okay, in Sanskrit, they call it as Anubhava Dhara, means streams of experience.
Yeah.
So for me, my entire journey, 4 decades, starting off much lesser, 25 years or so, and now I would say it's been a marvelous journey because I enjoyed the various streams which flowed along with me and which I flowed along with it, frankly. Life teaches you that. And I would say that it's been a very, so far, a very gratifying, 4 decades of corporate life.
Perfect. So, sir, during our conversations, you had shared with me something which would stop anyone on their track. And since we are talking about job titles as well, you never were a topper in college. Neither did you get an excellent rating in performance appraisals, but you always kept on getting promoted. So some professionals really tie their self-worth and their identity with the corporate job titles or a rating as if it's a report card. So what is a verdict that you would like to give to them? What is that one advice that you would like to give to them?
So I since I'm in the education field, I address a lot of college students also.
Yeah.
One of the key things which I keep telling them, that your marks are not your career,
Right.
right? A good Ivy League, for example, right? I think Divya, you're from Ivy,
Yeah.
all right? It helps you in getting your first job, right? And that's it. Then it's overall, your own aspects of performance counts a lot. And then most important aspect, when any good leader looks at it, you might be a great, let's say, systems analyst, or you might be a great sales executive. And he might get excellent because you have met your numbers and you have done all the KRAs and KPAs. Still, he may not get promoted. Reason is, when one looks at promotions to take up senior level positions, right? They look at it, the aspects of whether that candidate can lead a team.
Yes.
Can he build an ecosystem? Can he talk to customers in terms of sales, for example, or it could be in systems, right? It's basically, we call it problem solving. Can we do problem solving along with the team? Is he able to pull the team along with him, right? And at much senior positions, they even look at the fact that whether he can handle a press conference, like for example, having a chat, right? You attend press conferences. Can he represent our company, right? Those are the parameters one looks at it. Right? So your degrees, your marks, and other things, okay, are nothing but, I would say more like a medal where you can hang it around and say, I was a topper. That's it. Beyond that, it doesn't give you any great advantage. In fact, I would like to go further that in my own career, I have seen that many executives perform exceedingly well. Okay. Then when I start having dialogues with them as to which college they passed out and what are they, many of them are mediocres. Okay. But at the same time, I remember having major campus drive from the IIMs. Many of them did very well. I'm not saying no. But it was not necessary that the gold medalists did well. Okay.
Yeah.
The gold medalist did well as an individual contributor, but we never promoted him because he couldn't lead a team. He couldn't manage a team. He was a great IC, that is an individual contributor. So that's my own understanding of it. And somewhere or other, I still believe that in this world, you require all sorts of people. It's not necessarily only college toppers or rank students. Mediocrity also rules, right? So you require mediocre people. We require rank students, right? And way things are in this world, we require maybe non-graduates too as we go forward with all this AI coming in and so on. So that has been my own story. And I'm very proud of it, okay? Proud of it is because it is just not my degree which counted. I'm an engineer. I did my evening MBA. I did all that thing, okay? But the fact is that I never stopped learning. The number of pivots I had, right? From IT industry itself, I was selling peripherals to very large, wax systems in digital equipment corporations, in HP, Unix systems, right? And PCs. And, all sorts of blade servers and so on. Software, huge plethora of software. It's a portfolio, right? So we had to number one, learn about products. That's one aspect. But most important aspect is experiential learning, which taught me how to lead a team. And I was very fortunate. I think I became a manager at around 27, 28 itself. And I think I was a director at around 40. This experience, the experiential learning, actually was my greatest learning, more than what I learned in college or in my post-graduation. And this is my story.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Sir, since we are talking about the climbing the corporate ladder, do you really think a corporate ladder exists, or is it just a fancy statement that the society has woven around corporates?
I think it's a very good question, corporate ladder.
Yeah.
I would say that, that corporate ladder per se is not in the ladder in the true sense, right? I would say that even if I look at my own career, it has been more of a jungle gym, because you don't go straight up like this, right? You don't go up in the incline. Sometimes you go up Sometimes you move diagonally. Sometimes you move horizontally. Sometimes you may have to step back to move forward, right? So that is the way of the corporate world. And this is what I keep telling, young students and my mentees. Look, don't think that, that corporate ladder exists. Well, it exists in one way that you're looking up in the ladder. But then the whole concept is not that you climb one step at a time. Sometimes, in Hindi they say, kuch paane ke liye kuch khona. You may have to let go to grow. And I have done that in my life. I have let go. Now, it's not very easy because usually what happens is people of my era, right, our generations, we associate ourselves with titles, right? And we feel very proud of it. Now, imagine that you have no title, right? And what are you? I'm just Ashok Pamadi. That's it. The whole aspect is you feel that you are nobody. There's no title. But you should think in those lines that I have no title. If I have no title, what am I? Okay, where am I going? And then you will be able to introspect, understand yourself, and take the right move for your career. And in the current context, I would say that people will have to have multiple choices and careers because of the advent of AI, with a new set of people coming in, right, Gen Z and so on and so forth. One has to look at multiple sorts of careers. You can't say that, this is the organizations I would like to work and retire. Well, it's great that you are able to retire. Like I worked in almost 16 years in one company. I was fortunate. But it's not necessary that everybody will have a long careers, right? Whole aspects have changed. The future of jobs have changed. The future of work have changed. So I would say that it is more like a myth, the corporate ladder, right? And one has to really look at it in a much more holistic manner and plan their careers accordingly.
Perfect. How wonderful, sir. So, sir, just one more question on the performance rating side of things that exists in the corporate ecosystem. Do you remember any specific case when you did an interesting performance appraisal meeting and maybe your team member would not forget that for the rest of his or her life?
I would say that performance rating in most of the firms I worked, at least the jobs which I did, were very interesting. Because I always believe that continuous rating or continuous feedback mechanism is most important. Okay. So what I used to do is every quarter we used to go for offsite, even in NASCOM, right? And it's not necessary that the funds are coming in from the company. Many times I used to fund for it on my own. And the whole aspect is I used to take that particular meetings as a point to give them feedback and also take feedback, solicit feedback. Because it's always a two-way communication, right? So the formal KRA, KPA appraisal, yes, has to be done. We used to do it. But you'll be surprised, again, it used to be an offsite. In fact, I remember once I took them all to a pub. Okay, I took them to, I remember, 10 Downing Street in Hyderabad.
Wow.
It was not all that great because too noisy, frankly speaking. And it's a serious matter we discuss. But then, people used to say, what appraisals, sir? You already finished our appraisals. And that's a beauty aspect, right? So I always believe that you don't have to wait till the end of the year to tell them what they are. You got to be upfront in telling them every quarter, if not every week. And that makes a continuous improvement for them and for me too, right? And that is the way I used to operate. And yes, I used to have a lot of fun because I believe that's the only way for team bonding. And especially when I had a lot of youngsters working with me, I used to ask them, where do you want to go? And they used to tell us where we want to go. And I used to go to that place wherever they chose. Okay, invariably it used to be in various resorts, outside of Bangalore or outside of Hyderabad, because these are the two locations where I had worked for a large number of years. And we used to do our appraisal systems or having our team meetings out there. And that is the way I did. And I find that even today, I find that many people, they get very scared. It's be it the manager or be it the employee, telling, hey, today's my appraisal day. Now, come on now, you have worked with him for a long time, right? So it doesn't make any sense over there. And top of that, an appraisal is done by one manager anyway, right? And as I told you, promotion is not being decided by one manager. It's only a rating. It may be excellent or met, or maybe, bad luck could be that he may not have met. But that's where you are getting your, your salaries maybe. That's it. Beyond that, it is something more, right? It is done throughout the year. And your promotions are decided by the management. That they decide that this guy decides to be a director or a vice president or whatever it is, right? And this is what I keep telling all the people. Don't make your life miserable by one KRA, KPA or one appraisal system which is going to happen at the end of the year. And some companies have improved, they have made it even 6 monthly. I've seen that. So there's a lot of changes happening now in the future of work and future of jobs today. Many of the startup ecosystem, they're also having a quarterly appraisal system, formal appraisal system. So I would say that things are changing for the better. I honestly believe that's the right approach.
Yeah. But sir, having a performance appraisal meeting in a pub sounds like fun to me, being a millennial. So I'm not sure how Gen Z would feel about it. I think they would all be interested to work with you after hearing this podcast.
Well, actually, the data shows different story, Divya. It's the millennials who like the pub. The new Gen Z don't like pubs. And you must be seeing, right? They like to go for bhajan jamming, for example, right? So the whole concept have changed. So I am not very sure. But since you asked me, I will ask Gen Z, what is it that they want to do? And do what they want, not what I want. And that's the difference.
How wonderful. How wonderful, sir. Okay, sir. So you've done, in your corporate career, you've done assignments or projects either from scratch or you've picked up really high-risk projects. So what did these high-risk projects teach you that no business school can?
Oh, this is very interesting because recently I've been mentoring a lot of senior women, from one of the firms, one of these large auto companies. And this is what I told them, that when you pick a project or you pick an assignment, take one which is the highest risk, or take one which nobody wants to take it, or take one which nobody has ever done it.
Yeah.
Now, you may ask me, why do you want to take that? Well, high risk means high rewards. That's it. Okay. So I always took assignments which were very new, or take assignments, like we can say non-performing assets and make it as a performing assets. That is what I think I enjoyed most. Because doing a regular job doesn't make anything, no fun.
Monotonous.
It's monotonous.
And there is no impact that you can create there.
Yeah. But then there's high risk. Please bear in mind, it's high risk. But if you don't have risk, what's there in life? Right? You got to take risk. And I have been taking risks throughout my life. And even now I take risks. Right? So this is what, Divya, I would say, and I advise people that if you have an appetite for risk, you should take this. At least my mentees, I've all told them. In fact, I used to draw a graph and tell them where exactly you should do and etc. etc. Because people can understand in pictures. So that is the way, at least I have, kept my philosophy. High risk means high rewards. And in the process, you build high performing teams. You got to bear that in mind. The team becomes absolutely terrific. It's something like, RCB today. It's a fantastic cricket, IPL, they're winning, right? They won last year. Today, they took risk. They took a lot of risk. And today, they're winning. And that is what is important, even in the corporate world, right? Even in sports, anywhere. You look at it, they take risk. And if you don't take risk, you can never succeed. And that's what startups do, right? And many of the large corporations also do that. And as individuals, why can't we? That's the question.
Absolutely. And I think while you are doing the high risk, high reward projects, the kind of learning that comes along with it, that may be unprecedented in the entire career. And the way you learn and grow from there, even if you fail, that's also fine. It would be a glorious failure, in my opinion.
Like, they say failures are the pillars of success.
Absolutely.
Right? And this is what, probably I mean, I have got great respect for B school, but they may not teach all this stuff.
They do not. Okay, perfect, sir. There was a time in your career when your health forced you to stop, you took a break. I want to know that how did you feel about your self-worth at family dinner tables, family events? How did you feel emotionally about it? And how did you come out of it?
So, Divya, I would say it's a pretty tough one. To be honest with you, I was low, right? It is not the question of being low physically, it's emotionally. I think, as I told you, generally you are associated with titles. I was Vice President IBM, Geo Expansion at that time. And I felt very low. At dinner tables, I used to say, what's my worth? What's my value? Okay, I'm not doing anything. And this is where, you start doing a little bit of introspection, telling that, what is it that I am doing? But that it gave me a lot of opportunity for, being with children. In fact, I remember my son was still in first year PUC, 11th standard. My daughter was in the final year, I think, of the degree. It was my family, it was the backbone, the pillar of strength, especially my wife. She supported me throughout, right? And the whole aspect is you do realize that a family is actually not looking at your titles. Family is not looking at a fancy paycheck coming to you. Family is looking at the kind of quality time the father is giving to the children and to the family. And same with friends. Friends are not, close set of friends who were hanging around with me during that tough period. They looked at you for your character, for your humility, right? And they continued to support you during those tough times. So all in all, I would say that it has been a big learning for me. And I had to bounce back. When I bounced back, it was actually the family which supported me throughout. I remember my son taking me for the first walk after 3 months, and I couldn't walk for more than 10 minutes. In fact, I had to be rushed again to the hospital. But that's how, I pulled back. And I pulled back pretty strong, okay? And that's where that resilience comes in. Yeah. And I would say that has been my story. And normally I don't talk about it, but since you asked me and you came to know about it, I'm mentioning you. I was not very old also. I was just, I guess, 50 years or so. There's one more aspect which I thought that this particular aspect is there for everybody, all right? And many people will go through health issues, or maybe as a woman, you might be going through maternity leave. But the difference would be that women are wired, okay? They're wired by telling that, look, I'm a daughter-in-law, right? There's somewhere it's wired. For men, unfortunately, the whole aspects would be, especially older generation, is the title. Yeah. It's a job. Yeah. Phones don't ring. Yeah. Every hour the phone rings, nobody rings, nobody calls you, right? So the whole aspects, emotionally, you get drained, right? And so you have to bounce back. And I think this is a very good learning, according to me, I got, okay? Though I wish it was not the health issue, but nevertheless, it was a big learning for me. And you had to step back. I did step back. And then I rebuilt my own career. But then when I say that when I rebuilt my career, I want to make it very clear. The past experiences don't go for waste, right? It's your experiential learning, your relationship, right? Your patterns, which you recognize over the last 30 years, all comes to hand, right? It comes very handy. So I won't say that taking a break is bad. It's pretty good. In fact, the new generation, I understand, Gen Z, they want to take a lot of breaks. And so be it. There's nothing wrong. And good that they're taking a break for their own, not health reasons like what I had to. It was compulsory for me. So this has been, I would say, my own journey as far as my health issues were concerned.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I agree with you. So after all of this health scare, taking a break, you became the CEO of NASCOM Foundation, though you always dreamt of becoming a CEO of a conglomerate. So what did this shift teach you about ambition?
See, being ambitious is nothing wrong, right? As I told you, at 30, I was ambitious. I wanted to have fancy titles. I wanted to have a large team, etc., etc.
Yep.
But as you grow forward in life, right, it teaches you. It teaches you it's not the number of people you have with you. It's the number of people you are able to impact or basically pull them up in the ladder. It's not a title which counts also, right? So that is something which you learned. As far as coming to the CEO is concerned, I would say that somewhere around early 2000 or not, I would say 2006 or something, 5 or 6,
Yeah.
is where I started getting calls from headhunters, big ones, okay? Calling me for, would you like to take a position as a CEO in X company, Y company, etc., etc. That I was very happy, being in HP, I didn't want to change. So I continued to be there. But what was there, it gives me the needed, a push, a nudge, a gentle nudge. Hey, Ashok, you are now a director. It was called CASPA, that is Commercial Account Solution Partners and Alliances in HP. It was one of the largest as far as revenues of servers and other things were concerned. But it gave me that nudge by telling, hey, why can't I become a CEO? Because, when Egon Zehnder and others can call you for a CEO position, that means to say that somewhere or other, you can become a CEO. And then many of my mentees used to say, whatever it is, they say, sir, you are a CEO material. And whatever they meant by that, I don't know. But they used to say that, you are a CEO material. And it is way back, okay? I'm talking about 2005, 6, like that.
Yeah.
And anyway, then later on, 2010, I had that major health issues. I had to step back. And then after a nearly 1 year break, okay, I joined. Now, please bear in mind, when I joined as you can say more like a regional manager of Bangalore, from vice president of IBM. It was really a stepping back. But then it was intentionally done. Because, like they say that you got to let go. And this is one opportunity. I thought it's a great thing to do because, I had heard of NASSCOM because when I took 1 year break, 2 or 3 firms, I started supporting them, who were some of my dealers in HP and so on. And some of them were members of NASSCOM. And in HP or in IBM, we were always looking at the NASSCOM's strategic review reports to plan our own sales targets, okay? So I was aware of NASSCOM. But there's another interesting thing I wanted to share with you. It was only my first job and the last job that I applied for a job. No other jobs I applied. Okay, the jobs were coming from either headhunters or the companies used to directly call me. So the last job, again, I applied. I called the president of NASSCOM and told him that I would like to join, etc., etc. So I told him that, I always believe in being authentic. I told him that I had a heart problem, etc., etc. So he said, are you fine now? I said, yes. Then he said, okay, you go through the entire process. And that's how I joined as a regional manager, only managing Karnataka. So that has been, I would say, my overall journey of, looking at things. And then what happened when you asked about a CEO, while there was that nudge was there, but then I said, it's okay. I changed a little bit in my LinkedIn profile. To be honest with you, only after I retired, I changed it again. It continued to be there from 2005 to 2021. The same stuff, which clearly said that I want to support CEOs and others. Okay, I never said I want to become a CEO. I want to support. I want to be a great person as a C-suite leader, supporting those C-suite leader, etc., etc. And when you have, you sort of manifest.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And the last 3 years of my career in NASSCOM, I was actually transferred to NASSCOM Foundation as the CEO. And that has been my thing. So I would say that a nudge which was laid back in 2005 finally happened in something around 2018 or so. And that's my story as far as the CEO is concerned.
So, what a great story of let go, reinvention, resilience. So, there can be so many professionals, standing at a pivot point, terrified of losing everything. they might be actually terrified of letting go. So I'm sure this story is going to give them a lot of insights and a lot of inspiration to maybe pivot into something new and do something purposeful and meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, it's I would say one is pivot, other one is you got to what I can reinvent yourself. I think that is the right word. In the process, you might have to pivot. There's no second thoughts about it. And current generation are looking at many pivots.
Hmm. They're looking at portfolio of skills.
And if you look at it, mine has been a portfolio of skills, right? And that makes it more interesting because many a times, I think 2 weeks ago I was invited by one of the good universities, PES University. So the chat was, what do you want me to speak about? Because I said, if you want, I can speak on future of jobs, future of skills, or whether I want to speak on entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship or diversity, equity, inclusion, or social innovation. What do you want me to speak about, right? Or in a typical thing on the IT industry, on AI and other things. So you give a choice because that's been my career throughout, right? And that makes it more interesting because every time I'm always, doing something or the other because that keeps me excited and keeps me going.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you've seen and navigated through many technological disruptive eras. Every decade, most of the technology would have changed through your entire 40 years of journey. Now, AI is not coming for us; it's already here. So, what's your take on how AI can change the corporate landscape of the world and how should the workforce be prepared for it? Is there any particular skill that you think would distinguish the workforce from the others who don't learn it?
See, I would say that in the current juncture, it's something like a digital divide. Either you know AI or you don't know AI. Okay, that is the blatant truth about AI. Good news is that AI need not be only in English, right? With Bhashni coming in and the government of India is supporting so much, it can be in your local language, right? So anybody can learn AI. Now, when you look at the whole aspects of it, some of the data what is coming out, right? By 2030, they're talking about 4 million additional jobs because of AI in India. 4 million. That's not a small number. And as it is, if I look at it, India is leading in AI services globally. We are the largest. Yeah. And I don't see any reason as to why we can't become the AI talent factory for the world. Why? Because we have the best demographic dividend, highest number of graduates passing out, right? One of the highest number of graduates passing out. And not necessarily only men. We have a lot of women too coming in STEM. Right? So all these things points out to one thing that we can definitely be a force to reckon with as far as AI is concerned in India. But the fact also remains that about 1.5 million people working in the industry might get impacted if they're not able to reskill themselves fast in AI. Okay, so that's very, very important. But today, as I see that clearly, generative AI and other things are clearly giving more jobs to people. But then you can't become a slave to AI. It's a human-centric approach you got to take. Like you keep humans in the middle, use data and technology, and human are actually the people who are managing it. So if you keep that into consideration, I think it'll be good for the country because India is going to become very big. But it'll be a country where it'll be more human-centric approach will be there. So these are some of the qualities which will never go away is curiosity, for example.
Okay.
Empathy, right? You got to be empathetic because in India, if you look at it, AI seems to be currently in tier 1 cities, right? It is not really penetrated into the tier 3 and villages. So we are not having equitable growth as far as this is concerned, AI is concerned. So we have to have inclusive growth. So those are the things which are there. So this is where the aspects of, empathy will come into the picture, right? And most important aspect is the people should be in a very, very good approach of storytelling, right? And they should, in storytelling with data or data visualization is very, very important. Now, those skills are something which AI can't do very effectively. So I would say that human beings are the ones which are going to rule, and especially in India, where we have a large population, you can do wonders. And I would like to point out one very important thing, which I always like, which I say is, a fool with a tool is still a fool.
I used to tell this to my own teams as well whenever we were doing a POC with a new tool.
So you got to keep that in mind. And I would say that we require AI from all streams. It's just not in engineering. No. We require cognitive thinking. So we require people with liberal arts. We require people from HR background. We require people from health, finance, right? Agriculture, logistics, right? You name it. We are a country and a force to reckon with. But you got to keep the softer aspects, the professional skills into consideration, and use AI for your advantage and not AI for you. And that will be the huge difference you can make to yourself and to the world.
Okay. So, sir, in AI's breakthrough, if we talk about, ChatGPT changed the world and then Claude followed. Given the scale, vertical and horizontal depth that India already has, do you think we are, standing at a breakthrough moment where we can also create such a tool which is going to just disrupt and change the world for good?
See, to happen, I would say that some great startups have already come up, right? For example, Sarvam has come, right?
Yes.
It's already a unicorn.
Yes.
But we want to have more of that. Is very important. And that can happen only if there is more funding for R&D.
Yeah.
So if I recollect, India's R&D spend is about 0.64 against the global standards of 1.8 to 2. US, for example, is 3.5. China is around 2.4 to 2.5. So India is very low compared to the global.
So more research funding needs to be allocated.
Now, again, when I look at some more data points, I see clearly that the corporate is only spending 36%. Okay, government is doing their bit. So I think we require more corporate funding into R&D. Okay, there may be their own R&D. I'm not telling XYZ R&D, their own R&D. I think that will make some difference. And more than anything, I would say that I would like to use the word triangulation. When I mean triangulation, we have the government as a major sponsor, right? They have been supporting a lot of startups and various other initiatives, right? That's a sponsorship coming from the government. Then the other end, we have this great academic research institutions. Currently, there are about 51 top institutions in the country, which is the IITs, the Indian Institute of Science, and IIMs and all. They're considered as the institution of repute.
Absolutely.
But when you look at other private institutions, nothing much on R&D is going on. They're churning out more and more graduates every year, not much of R&D work going on. And then finally, the corporate. Now, apart from corporate funding into the research and startup ecosystem, by the way, most of this large institute of repute also have great incubators. You take IIT Chennai, IIT Bombay, Indian Institute of Science, IIT Kanpur, IIT Delhi. All of them have some great startups, right? But they require more funding. So I would say this triangulation where you have sponsorship, government, pure research coming in from R&D and startup ecosystem, and corporates for scale. That will become a very, very phenomenal combination. This triangulation will work wonders for the country. And I think we require more of this, more institutions. Why only 51, right? You have to have more institutions coming in and you'll see a difference happening in. I think till that time, we'll still, we will not be in a position to have a Claude or Gemini of the world and other things. ChatGPTs of the world and so on and so forth. But having said that, Divya, I also believe, I'm very, very optimistic about one thing, and maybe it's because I've been in IT services for a long time. See, today we are already leading in IT services as far as AI is concerned, right? So when I look at the problems which Indians are facing, India as a large country is facing, right? There's in health tech, there is in agri-tech, there's in logistics, right? There's
InsurTech. In every domain we are there.
We are there and there's a lot of problems, right?
Yeah.
So when the startups start solving out for problems in India, it's a problem for the world.
Yeah.
So you are actually giving solutions for the world, right? You may not have a cloud coming in, but you have a solution for the world. And I think I look at it that way, that telling, hey, look, more and more startup is great, and we can become a very powerful nation, right? We are talking about 2041, right? Which is Bharat. We can. And I think the government has done the right thing by giving more impetus to startup. But I think the research work, pure research, that will make a difference to us as we go forward.
So allocation of funding to the right places so that more research can happen. In terms of technically, you've explained everything that we may stand at a breakthrough of creating a breakthrough of that magnitude. But to become India as a global superpower, is there anything we should do economically, institutionally, culturally? Technically, you've spoken already. Is there anything else that we need to do? We want to become global superpower.
See, if you want to become global superpower, see, one of the greatest thing we have is the demographic dividend, right? We are a country which boasts of 377 million Gen Z, which is bigger than the population of US, right? And almost 25% of them have entered the workforce, 25 to 27%, and more will be entering by 2030. Are we truly harnessing the power of Gen Z? Is the first question. Second is inclusive growth. Are we in a position to really talk about with authority and saying that whatever we're doing is also impacting tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities? I don't think that is happening. So we don't have a inclusive growth. We need to do more on inclusive growth. And the third thing is also women power. What are we doing on women power, right? Because you look at a McKinsey report, it says that $700 to $770 billion can be generated if you have gender equality at workplaces. That's a large number, which is going to add 1.8% to the GDP, right? Now, what are we doing? How can we become a superpower, right? It's only in papers. Unless we lift those, communities, those regions, and those set of people who are currently looking for jobs or don't know what to do, I think only then you will find that it is possible. From good, we can become great.
Wow. On that note, sir,